Timmy.
Hello, Tyler. Dilly. You can hear me okay?
Um,
Sound good?
I believe so.
Shall we get going?
Sure.
Okay. So, welcome to Real Raw Recovery. I'm Joe Tilley.
Tyler Tilley.
And we'll start in the usual manner, shall we? With a moment of silence and the Serenity We prayer. God, grant us the serenity to accept the things we cannot change, courage to change the things we can, and wisdom to know the difference. So I'll do the reading today.
All right.
It's an interesting one. I want to see what you have to say about this, actually. So, a spiritual life which does not include family obligations may not be so perfect after all. Alcoholics Anonymous, page 129. I can be doing great in the program, applying it at meetings at work and in service activities, and find that things have gone to pieces at home. I expect my loved ones to understand, but they cannot. I expect them to see and value my progress, but they don't, unless I show them. Do I neglect their needs and desires for my attention and concern? When I'm around them, am I irritable, or boring? Are my amends a mumbled sorry, or do they take the form of patience and tolerance? Do I preach to them, trying to reform or fix them? Have I ever really cleaned house with them? The spiritual life is not a theory. We have to live it. AA, page 83. I'm interested to hear your comments about that because I was sober for a long time and the family. You were part of the family. What is your initial feeling about that? Do you have any?
Well, do you want to probe me more specifically?
Well, what I mean is okay, so you were there when I got sober and started working my program, and I'm interested to hear from your perspective what you thought of my recovery process and whether you thought I was available and whether it was where the things went to pieces at home.
You want to do this on air?
Sure. I got big shoulders some days.
I'd honestly have to give you a fair answer, give myself a fair answer. I'd have to almost sit with that for a little bit.
Yeah.
But I can tell you in a nutshell without that I really believe our relationships today with you, Mom, Maddie, Spencer, Matt, you, Mom, Maddie and Spencer, our relationship is our family unit is I can think of a bunch of words, but I'd start with so sacred, so miraculous. It's like when I was thinking about boring, like if I were to go through and then to turn my thought process is what AA gave you really transpired into our family, and the closeness and the vitality and the openness was a direct result of the program.
Yeah.
It also came with a lot of learning. So like I don't really see downfalls. And like, so if I were to look at you specifically as my father and then go through like, did you neglect the needs and desires of my attention? No, I feel like you gave me like enough leash, especially when yeah, and then you were also like when I crossed the line, I would know it. Uh, I felt like your amends were corrected by your consistency. Like you weren't a flip flopper. It wasn't like one weekend you're drunk, one weekend you're like you really went all in. So like it would have been a lot worse if like you were sober 6 months, then went back out, and you know what I mean. It would just been a mess.
Mm-hmm.
So your simple commitment to yeah, you're like you're going to give it up, and then you're going to change your way of living, like, and then to hold on to that. Otherwise, it would have not all been for nothing, but it just would have been a lot more volatile and disconnected. And then I do feel like there was a period because of my adolescence, like bringing me to those meetings for your medallions and stuff. It was so important to you, but it was the worst day on the planet for me. Like being surrounded by all those knuckleheads with no teeth was just the worst as a child. And everyone was loving the. Are you there? You are gone. You have left the building.
Oh, you know what I did? I hit the. I'm good. Yeah. Can you hear me now?
I can. Did you hear me?
Yeah, I heard all of you. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, no, I just meant it wasn't the worst day on the way. I just remember because of my own insecurities. Like I was not a very open child, especially to people I didn't want to know. And like, you know, and then the funny thing is as I got older, a lot of those knuckleheads, I said, like turned out to be very important people in my personal life.
Yeah.
But just and like, so that was a hard thing because I didn't want to be the son of a preacher man. I didn't want to be like going to Zion Church yet again. Like that's just not what I growing up. That's not what I want to be associated with. I didn't want like that's the opposite of a biker dad. So
yeah.
And then so that's where I would tie in. Like I really did believe that you and mom wanted that new way of life for me right off the bat as well. So there was a lot of preaching because I remember even back then you used to say things like contempt prior to investigation.
I did, really?
Yeah. I have a vivid memory. It was like you must have learned it that day and brought it home and made sure I learned it.
Yeah, interesting.
But I wouldn't go as far as to say you were trying to fix, but you were almost like just sharing your experiences with us, which, like as I say it now, like didn't seem harmful. And then I felt like you cleaned house because you stuck with it. So like as you like, it wasn't like A, it wasn't a fad, and B, a lot of the principles just are surrounded by love and change. So like it was just those change and love were brought into our household when the previous half of my life was, I wouldn't call it hate and chaos, but it was like a lot of it was just upside down. So then just to kind of like go, okay, now we're different. was
Get
very,
used to it.
yeah, was, and like, why not? Like now or never kind of mentality. And
Right.
I think that's great. But like, I look at a lot of other children, like my friends that have children, or when I grew up in the fellowships, I would see people trying to recover with children, and their children are just fucking savages, like complete messes. And I think I got pretty lucky, like coming out of the wash the way that I did. Like I see some other kids that even though their parents are really great members, the
Right.
kids are just absolute nightmares. And I really believe there's a weird twist. Like if one day you're like kind of like a drunken animal, or like just, you know, not connected, and then you come home, like it feels like a light switch, it felt like, and then you come home and you're like, hey, I'm different and I'm sober and God loves you and loves me, and it's just like, good God, like too late.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so it's funny because if it hadn't been for my own addiction problems, I probably would have still rebelled against that kind of premise, because it just seemed too like, oh, get over yourself. Like it's not like that. It doesn't even that great. But having my own addiction problems, you realize how valuable. I was able to see the value in what you were going through, and like using your experiences and direction and trailblazing for my benefit. But if I didn't have an addiction, it might seem a little bit obscene, like absurd what you were doing.
Yeah.
So that's
I
kind
wonder
of,
if yeah. I mean, maybe would does the word phoniness come to mind? Like, I mean, you know, like if you weren't in
no, but
your
it
own
just seems like,
addiction.
oh, they got you. Like they got you and they brainwashed you, and now like you're this
Oh, I see. Okay. All
kind
right.
of this straight edge, like no charisma, no, like lacking charismatic, and now like
Right.
you're
Okay.
soft. You're soft. Like you were so hard before, and now you're
Yeah.
just a soft bitch
Yeah.
that doesn't drink. Like it just sucks. So like if I didn't have my own experience where I had to get in touch with my own flaws, where I really needed to change from the inside out, I would have still kind of seen you as like, oh, like you should probably just have, like you should probably not walk such a fine line.
So how do you mean I shouldn't walk such a fine line?
Yeah, like if I didn't have if I didn't come to my own realization with my own addiction, and realize the changes that actually needed to occur, and my perspective, and my, if I didn't have that myself, it would have been hard to really see why you were doing what you were doing.
Right. So you would have gone along the lines of more like, you know, they got you. It's almost like aliens came and stole my dad and turned him into goody two shoes.
Yeah, because that's just like a 180, like, you know, just like there's a, and I like to tap into that kind of that a little bit today. I don't like to stray too far on one side or the other. I like to kind of go down the middle.
Right.
And for me, that's a little different than probably a lot of people. But so if I wouldn't have had my own spiritual awakenings and my own connection with my God, it would have been hard to see why you were really making such major changes, and like going from a hard man to a soft man. It would have been hard to understand that, because it just seems so like that seems so like unattractive.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah. I get that. Yeah, it makes sense to me. Yeah. So that's probably some of what you felt then as a child, because
Yeah,
you weren't
because
recovered, right?
exactly.
Yeah.
Going to those meetings was so unattractive. It's like
Yeah.
you're basically helping homeless people and making me hug them. Like, why is like why wouldn't we?
Tyler, hug that smelly homeless person.
Yeah,
Come on. Hug the smelly homeless person.
but especially at that age though. So like, it's not like I say it with a little bit of reservation because I don't believe that today, but definitely at the time it was very like, come on, man, like this isn't fun at all. And like, so celebrating your achievement for turning soft was
That didn't
just
seem
like,
real.
it was just
Yeah.
so like, oh, and like, and especially early, like I believe things really took off for our family probably after, I would guess, like 5 or 6 years, because the first 5 or 6 years was still super unsteady.
Yeah.
So it wasn't just like it really wasn't a light switch. So like things were still rocky for a long time, but then all of a sudden it's like I think all of us started to really embrace your changes and mom's changes in a way that started to go, yeah, like actually having like a connected family is probably the greatest gift you could have. But it's hard to see that as an early teenager.
Yeah.
Or like an adolescent.
Yeah. Yeah, because in the beginning it seemed like these AA people have taken my dad and turned him into a sissy.
And you just really like, it's like you thought it's the greatest thing, and
Yeah.
like why wouldn't the rest of us? But like I still remember going to see you at I remember going to see you at,
Oh, in treatment.
yes.
Oh, yeah, right. Yeah.
And like that wasn't bad. That seemed chill and like, okay, cool. I don't think I really knew what was going on.
Yeah.
But like going to see you was a cool thing. But just the meetings weren't, because it was just like I'm not a people person anyway. Like and then so
Yeah.
add people that A, I'm unfamiliar with, B, they're overbearing with love and like excitement. And I'm
Yeah.
like, and then I remember having the ego at that point where I was just like, but you're not cool. So why, like,
Yeah.
if you were cool, I could be maybe down with this. But like, I had this sense of like, this is not what I anticipate, what I imagine cool as, or,
Right.
and that was my own stuff at that age too. Like, I just thought
Sure.
like, I can't imagine any value that you're adding. But like I said, it was probably around maybe earlier, like 4 or 5 years, where things I probably like started to really pick up, and like as the family unit. And then there was a period where I went off, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So then it was just all bets are off, and
Yeah. That was crazy time too. So in those early days, did you ever like talk to Maddie and Spence about it and think that this is crazy times, and who are these people, and what are they, what have they done with my dad?
I was very introverted with that kind of, like, I'm probably just, we would just act out together. Like often we would be a bit of a, like, if we can make the situation worse, we'll do that.
Oh yeah, let's create some havoc here.
Yeah, like this is not this, like we're gonna add our own ingredients to this mix.
Yeah.
So I think we would just like kind of like create, a disturbance.
Yeah. That's interesting. That's funny. Yeah. So, but then eventually you said you started to embrace it a little bit.
I definitely see that retrospectively. Like when I look back on our family, and like I don't see too many major hiccups at all. In fact, like I see so many beautiful times that we connected over dinner with laughter and like being silly, and like our house wasn't boring.
Yeah.
So like, yeah, it's like we were very obnoxious and but the heads of the table were sober though. But it didn't really
Yeah.
change it. Just, if anything, we just made us like kind of more open and more free and more excited to make each other laugh. And like, it's like, I don't want to sit down for dinner, but when we did, it was fun.
Yeah.
And then you were always rushing off to work though around dinner.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. That's about the time I had to head out, depending on what was happening, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And then we were always doing stuff. We were always usually tagging along. You would do something, and we would be tagging along with that something.
Yeah. Yeah. What kind of things would you're talking about? Like
I'm guessing
you'd be going
work-related stuff, like
like hosting something or
yeah, or like some event, lots of events,
going to an event. Yeah.
something.
Yeah. Cool. So so there was a big shift then. So then you're not really saying that I was unavailable then, are you? Because it says here like I expect my loved ones to understand. I'm applying it. I can be doing great in the program, work, meetings, etc., service activities. Find that things have gone to pieces at home. I expect my loved ones to understand that, but they cannot. I expect them to see and value my progress, but they don't unless I show them. Do I neglect their needs and desires for my attention and concern? So did you ever feel like you were in need of more attention or concern?
I think just when you were in your heyday, where it's like would be more of an obvious detachment or like distance.
Mm.
And then I would bring it more pertinent to like today, like where now our family we all have our own lives, and there's literal distance between us. And I would think this question is more valuable and pertinent today, more so than my childhood, personally,
Mm-hmm. Right.
because I just feel like A, I've worked through a lot of my childhood, and B, um, uh, I'm good with it.
Yeah.
So I'm more concerned, like, the cat's in the cradle.
The cat's in the cradle with a silver spoon. Little boy blue and the man in the moon.
Right.
Right.
Because now it's like um, I'm not physically available, and
Right.
you're retired but busy, and so I would put like the onus on both the onus wouldn't just be on you nor myself, but I would just look at it like that, like how am I interacting with my family today would be the number one question I would ask. Because if it's the past that you're dealing with, well, then go get a counselor or a therapist. And if it's, but like now, the most important thing is now. How are we interacting now? And now we've like it for like the first 2 years we didn't do this, at least, and now
Right.
scheduled a commitment to connect, to talk about life.
Yep.
And like that is just, I think, a commitment on both our parts that's needed, because if one of us faltered on that, or like relapsed on that commitment, it just would be like, that's not something I'm willing to do.
Yeah. Me too. I really like it. I enjoy it. It's a great connection, and it's a great, it's good for me to, it's a way of like doing some self-searching and some self-analysis too, right?
Right.
And by opening up and talking about this stuff, it's like, yeah, that's my opportunity to go a little deeper, and which is never a bad thing.
But I think like one of my new learning curves is I'll get a little deep here and a little bit transparent. But one of my big epiphanies with Spencer's death,
Yeah.
was realizing who's important and who's not. And so I really try to look at that with so I talked to Mom yesterday for a good half an hour. I talked to Maddie weekly, and I talk to you weekly, and then we chat like text message, social media style throughout the week.
Yeah.
And, I probably, again, me being transparent, like I would like to either keep that consistency or step it up a little bit, just because when I preach, I would suggest that, like, knowing who's important and who's not. And that is a bit of, I'm trailing a little bit away of the philosophy of AA with that, whereas like the newcomer is the most important person and that kind of philosophy. But my experience is that realizing when Spencer died, I remember the week of Spencer's death, I was sitting meditating with a guy on the beach on the rocks who was trying to get sober.
Yeah.
And when Spencer died, I remember looking back and going, I don't give a fuck about that guy. I don't care if he lives, dies, gets sober, doesn't. Like, he does not matter. So why was I spending time with him? Like, why was I doing that? And yet, like, yes, there's some spiritual principles that I got a lot out of it. I'm sure I did. But it just made me cut a lot of fat right away. It's like, I don't want to make time for these fucking knuckleheads anymore. It's just like, I don't care. So why am I pretending to care? And why am I like, and it was just such a rude awakening, where it's like, okay, if I'm going to spend an hour talking to somebody, it better be my fucking father. Like, I don't have an hour just to like toss at some fucking lonely idiot. And that needs to be dissected further. And there's some places where I'm sure I could give a little bit, some leeway, and I don't know all the time what's best in certain situations. Like, so I'm willing to, again, be transparent with that. But it was just like such an epiphany, where it's like, okay, these are the 10 people that when they call, I answer. Other than that, I'm fucking good. I'm good. And I don't mind opening the door sometimes. It's not a closed, locked, throw away the key vault. I'm just like, I got a great gift of recovery, which is my art, which is my life. And then I have a balancing act between my insane thinking and spiritual connection that needs to be maintained. And it's just a bit of a different pathway from your stereotypical AA method. So I just think when I read this reading, it's like, okay, so if I'm going to practice what I preach, how am I doing with my family? Because if all I'm saying is they're the most important and the end all be all, how am I doing? And so like I'm excited to call Maddie and hear about her her teaching at Lake Skoogog with everyone, and I got some feedback from Mom, and Mom seemed really proud, so I'm excited to hear that from Maddie. And I'm also in Thailand, so sometimes I feel a little guilty of that because I don't get to watch you grow old. So sometimes I look at that and go, like, I'm in Thailand, you're in Toronto, you're outside of Toronto, and I don't get to watch you age. And so my plan, like, so then I go, okay, I physically miss you. So my plan is like, if I can get myself in a position where I'm comfortable, then it's going to be a lot more, hopefully there's a lot more frequent physical interaction. In the meantime, I really want to keep, I get excited about our commitment, about talking to you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, me too. It's good.
So maybe you can give me some feedback on that harsh kind of like a little, like normally I don't like this, especially because we're recording this stupid thing, but it's a bit of a inner epiphany that I had that like I'm sharing with you now, just because we've already kind of gone way deeper than normal with just like reflecting on my childhood and stuff. So like you don't share that same sentiment at all, but when you hear me say what I say, what's your feeling about that, or your
Well, yeah. So well, my feeling, I guess, I don't know about my feeling, but what I'm hearing, or what I'm sort of, how I'm making sense out of that is that I hear that Spencer's death made you want to put your life in a more meaningful place, like you wanted to have a more meaningful perspective, and you understood the importance of helped you to understand the importance of family. And I think that works for me as well. And that I also find that helping other alcoholics, addicts is also part of that. It's like a part of that. Like, I want to be there for the family, but I also want to be there for others, because I find when I'm there for others, when I'm giving it away to others, that I do feel better. Like it's almost like when I'm able to pass on some of Spencer's story for example, to the new guys at the treatment center. That I think is good for me. It helps. It's cleansing for me, and it helps me to think that. Well, I believe at that point that Spencer's legacy is living on in that way, and it's good. Because Spencer, I think, would like to be helpful to others. I really do. So I think Spencer's desire to be helpful to others is still carries on in helping others, right? So sharing his story with other people, and sharing my own story of how I deal with his passing, and that's I think that's helpful to as well. Like I really believe that all of our experience makes us uniquely useful to be of service to others, and obviously to be of service to each other, other members of the family. That's great, important, and also to be able to pass that on to others who have their own stuff that they're going through. And because of our experience, we are kind of uniquely useful to help other people. And no matter what your experience is, you are uniquely useful to help other people. And newcomers connect with people based on how they relate, things they have in common, or things, just something they can relate to. So that's why all of our experiences make us uniquely useful to be helpful. So I want to be helpful, and when I'm helpful, I think it helps me to be more of a whole person and be more of a happy person, and be less in self-pity and less in other stuff. It keeps me out of negative emotions, and because the big book talks about how work with another alcoholic is always the answer when I'm struggling. If I'm having a hard time with something, if I throw myself into helping others, I'm going to feel better. And I believe that to be true. But it's not. I don't, and not to the point where I'm always running and always trying to help somebody and never taking care of myself, because I think we need to do that. But to be aware of the fact that I have something to offer, and I want to use that something that I have to offer to help others. And when I do that, I feel better. So why not do that?
What else is coming to mind? I talked a lot already.
I guess yeah, I think just I wouldn't want to be in a place where I'm neglecting my connections with you, with my family. I want to always make sure that I make that a priority. Like when it comes to helping others, and it comes to our living a good life, I think a quality life in recovery, I think I have to take care of family. B, I have to take care of job, making money, and C, I have to help others. So in that order, right? And so if I'm taking care of the family and doing a job, and I have lots of time left over to help other people, I think that puts me in a pretty good place. But I can't neglect those other two things. I can't neglect the family. Number one, I can't neglect my I can't have to focus on my business activities, and but for somebody who's kind of like semi-retired, I guess, the job thing, I can mix a lot more of helping others with any type of business activities. I don't have to go to work 8 hours a day, 40 hours a week, or whatever. Although you didn't usually have to do that anyway, but I have to do that. So I have lots of time to help others, and I do that.
Yeah, it's weird because I have one of the gifts of recovery, and a gift from Spencer is my art. And explaining my art to another individual is quite difficult because it's rather manic and radical in one hand, and on the other hand, it's soothing, healing, and powerful. And it's also like almost more important than anything, because it provides it fills the void in a way that is so profound and so crystal clear, and so, and like it means everything, and it's also like really easy to see how ridiculous it is too. But so for me it was like, okay, so having a real meaning in life, discovering what my meaning in my life is going to be, wanting to be like an 80-year-old man painting in a barn, having like children walk by and go, what is that old man doing? Like already know what like I'm like my pathway and what I'm gonna leave on this planet, leave behind, and
Yeah.
is so, I'm so grateful for that. But as I've grown, and as I probably hit the 10-year marker right around now, like for painting,
Mm-hmm.
and it's hard to kind of like, for me it's often, not always, but for me it's really clear like how that coincides with keeping my spirit alive. And then when I notice I'm getting a little isolated or I'm getting a little off balance, well then I need to use a lot of the tools that I've learned and acquired and experienced before that I know that work, to kind of get me back into a good groove. And what I
Mm-hmm.
heard you say earlier was that like um, you put it like, you put it one way where I was the exact opposite. So it's like, for me, it's like, as long as I have all like A, B, you talked about like A, B, and C, your family, work, and then your time for others.
Mm-hmm.
I can really relate to that. But you also said earlier about, um, uh, shit, you, you indicated oh yes, I remember. You indicated that you got to make sure that you leave some time to make sure that you're doing good. Like, because
Yeah.
you were talking about like, hey, take care of the guy, the newcomers, sharing Spencer's story, taking care of your family, and then you had added like the footnotes stating like, and make sure you take time to take care of yourself.
Mm-hmm.
For me, it's like the exact opposite. It's like, okay, I take care of myself, make sure my family's in order, my work's in my vocation is in check, and then if I have some spare change, well then it goes to the new guy.
Well, that's the same thing. The difference being is that, like, okay, so you're flying solo in Bangkok. I mean, I'm sure you have relationships with people that are there too that you maintain, which is kind of like family. But with your passion and your job are the same thing, and so and you have to take care of that. And if you don't take care of that, it's like the big book says, helping others is an avocation, which means that we have a job, we have a family life, we have things, and then on the side, it's not a vocation, it's not a job, it's an avocation, which means it's something we do on the side, right? And I mean, there are people who work at treatment centers and work in recovery, and that's their job, right? So that's a little bit different. But for those, and even those people, I think they still have to do the recovery work, helping others, one-on-one stuff on the side. We all have to do that, or else we're going to waste away, I think. But it just, to me, my avocation has grown because my vocation has lessened. So less work, more time for helping others.
Right.
Because I don't have, because I just, as a matter of course, I just have less work. So less vocation, more avocation.
And then I would really like, part of my message is also like, how can you benefit the community around you, the environment around you, and the like making people's lives better, or like how can you impact others in a positive way? Because when you do that, that's it. Like there's an element of meaning in that. So it's like I try to take what I'm doing and find platforms to involve other people and make their lives better for it. And that's what I've been working on, and that's kind of like the long-term goal for what I'm doing here as well. So I have like a few people that I really okay, if I do this, this, and this, I come up with these crazy ideas and implement them, it impacts people in a positive way.
Yeah, that's great.
But it puts a lot of pressure and a lot of like good there's a lot of pressure and a lot of emphasis on like the stuff I'm doing, like to another degree, because again, like when I'm doing well, then the people that I'm connected with are in theory doing better off than when I'm not doing well. So it's been like this long, drawn out, kind of sometimes shitstorm of me trying to do well, so that I can, the people I've committed to, I'm going to make their lives better. So that's, and I, because it's kind of like now that I have a brain of my own, I can pick the people that I really want to impact. Whereas like if you use the philosophy of AA, new guy reaches out, like I don't necessarily have chosen to impact his life. He's kind of like I'm just doing what was done for me in a sense, but there's no real like direct, like, no, I'm going to help this guy and this is going to be the result. And versus like, well, I hope like, I'll give him what I've learned and hopefully he chooses the right path and gets sober. It's like, I just have a bit of a different, like more direct and more like not kind of up in the air. And I have more control over it versus just like finding somebody in the rooms who is struggling, for example, and then just throwing some like, I don't know, it just seems not as like, it doesn't seem as tailored as it needs to be. It doesn't seem as like I feel I can get more clear about like I want to help this guy for these reasons, and he's also reciprocating that help, and it's going to be like this is how it's going to work.
So that's, I don't know, that's structuring it. And there's but you certainly, we know we can't control the outcome. But we can control. I mean, all I can do is maybe control how much time I spend with that type of thing.
Right.
But I can't control the outcome of what happens as a result of that. No, at all. But
I try to control the outcome, though. Don't you try to control the outcome?
I guess so. I really don't want to try to control the outcome. I mean, I want to be able to be, independent of that and just let God's will go the way it's supposed to. But I do have, it's like I do feel like I have some sort of skin in the game when I really don't. I mean, my job is to carry the message. If they get it or they don't, that's none of my business. But I want them to get it. And then I think that's just a natural thing. I mean, it's pretty hard to not want them to get it. But, there's only so much I can do. And if somebody doesn't really want it, if I'm controlling the situation so they kind of trying to make them want it, that's not good. They have to decide they want it. But I'm when I say, having said that, I think I'm a little bit guilty of that because I will try to go that extra mile and keep on top of people and call them and make sure they're on board. And but I think that's okay. It just it's a fine line between codependency and being truly being helpful. And I think sometimes I walk on both sides of that line.
When do you think it's appropriate to ask a member in the fellowship if they're sober, they have a good grasp and understanding and direction spiritually? How valuable, and if so, when would you ask, okay, so what are you going to do with your life? Or is it just kind of like, oh, just turn that over to God? Or are you?
Yeah, honestly, if that should be, I think that's something I want to turn over to God, because it's none of my business. But you know, really, it's not my business. But you know, at the same time, it's kind of like, you know, if I'm a person who's not living my life and all I'm doing is just trying to like hang around, go to meetings and hang around, just do recovery, and not trying to do anything with my life at all, maybe there's a certain safety, a certain comfort that I'm finding in not kind of growing up. So maybe I need to look at that. But it could also be that maybe this is just where I have to be right now. And I'm just not ready to grow up because I've been such a child all my life. I need to just, or maybe I haven't had a chance to be a child all my life, or, you know, whatever it is, right? Maybe I need to have this child time and not grow up yet, or maybe I need to grow up. And I guess, you know, that's something each individual has to determine for themselves, right? What do I need? What do I need to do? Do I need to grow up right now? Or do I need to be a child for a little longer, allow myself to do that? I don't know. I don't think that's up to, it's up to me to make that determination. It's up to each individual. I think that if I can be really helpful to somebody, I can help them figure out what their choices are and help them to figure out what they really want to do. But I certainly can't tell them what to do. Because maybe it's okay for them to just to be a child like for a while, you know?
My perspective is like that part that you're not willing to step into is the most, like, is what essentially keeps me sober. The meaning of, like, having meaning in my life outweighs my desire to go back out and drink and use drugs.
So obviously it's really important for you to grow up.
But and then
to
also
take responsibility,
like,
yeah.
Okay, yeah, like, so you got a good grasp on your creator. You've been granted a second chance. You've mulled around for a bit and got a good understanding of the tools that you need to maintain this break from your disease. And now what
are you going to do with it?
Yes. And by doing that is why you'll get to 2 years, 5 years, and 10 years. If you do not figure out why you're on the planet, it's not because you're sober. I hate to break it to you. You're not on the planet just to be sober. You're on the planet for something much, much bigger, much greater.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what's going to outweigh your decisions to ever return, especially when the chips are down. It's like, nah, like, I got a good thing going, man. And yes, I had a shitty day, and yes, I need to get to a meeting, and yes, let me chat to this dude, but what's really unfolding here? Where am I putting my heart and soul? And for some people, I think you included in many ways, like, a lot of your heart and soul is in seeing new guys find a path. And
yeah,
like, you know what I mean? And there's, like, that's how honorable and exciting is that, but my point is, like, okay, let's say you got to 3 years if you don't start figuring out, like, if you're not back in school, if you're not doing this, if you're not doing that, then God help you. Because you only get a certain amount of time before it all crumbles, and you go, why am I sober? This is the worst.
So do you think that happens to a lot of people, though? Do you think a lot of people just go through just stay in that place where they're not kind of like, as I mentioned before, like growing up?
No, I think they go back out.
You think they go back out?
Yeah, I feel like that they're.
Is it because they're scared? Is it because they're afraid of growing up?
No, I don't use that analogy. I feel like they haven't found meaning, and finding God and going to meetings is not enough.
But okay, so are they afraid of finding meaning then?
Not afraid. Not afraid. I think they just
too lazy. Too lazy.
No, I do believe, like, that's where it was kind of like, I don't know, but I think that's possibly that, like, fear, sloth. Like, I still feel like maybe some of the old character defects are holding people back, but I also believe that it's trial and error. And if you can manage to figure out what makes your motor run, what makes you want to wake up, then you're going to be able to combine your sobriety, your experience, into something valuable. And that valuable gem will then repel at the critical moments. You go, no, I really like what I got. I really like the relationships I'm maintaining with myself, God, and others. And I love my meaning of life. And I'm not willing to gamble that for a drink or a drug. I'm just not. I'm not willing. I can't afford to. I honestly can't afford to go for a drink right now. I just can't. It's not an option. Like, it just doesn't. I can't see the value in it at all. Even if I lined up everything, I get hammered and take a private jet to Las Vegas and go on like a killing spree, literally. Like, I don't see it. It doesn't make me more excited than what I got going on. I obviously think different than you, and I use different terminology. But like, if you could go, like, what would be your best blackout, raging dream world? It would literally be like slaughtering people on fucking acid, or like, you know what I mean? Like, so, but like literally, what could bring more? And then like telling the stories about what your trip was like in jail for the rest of your life, or before you get executed.
Right.
I can't think of like I'm literally being brutally honest. Like, what would be the most outrageous thing? Because at the end of the day, you're just leaving behind a story.
Yeah.
And so what I got going on is like, I found what I get excited to wake up and do. Like, when I wake up, I'm excited about what's in front of me for a lot of different reasons. Sometimes stress, sometimes excite. Like, I'm blessed with the ability to, I always am filled with new ideas. Like, I always hear these artists that I surround myself with at a specific market, and they're always concerned about other people stealing their ideas, because they're always just doing the same fucking thing. And I'm just like, if someone steals my idea, go ahead. I have a million others incubating and waiting for me to do. Like, I don't care. I'm so grateful for my brain. Like, I just come up with like concept. Oh, this is the next million. If I do this, I'm going to be a millionaire. I got $1 million idea. Just sit right now, just waiting to be executed. Like, that's so thrilling and so exciting. And that's what makes me go, why would I stop this train to get off and go to do what? Like, honestly, what am I missing? And I'm just not, like, I filled that void. And remember, that void is filled with a bunch of things. It's not just, because there are times where I look at myself like, am I just a workaholic? Probably. But I feel like as long as I'm balancing with, like, if I get off the rails, well, then it'd be like, hey, Dad, I can't meet you for 3 months. Well, then you'd know, like, I'm not balancing my time wisely. and I'm not making in theory, the right decisions. So then it would be like, okay, so it sounds like you're not in check and you're not balanced. So whatever you're doing is not working. But like I'm personally walking a fine line where it's like, I can always either be like a little too extreme or a little too isolated. So I got to a meeting on Friday. It was really, I only went for the sole purpose of I invest in myself. I don't want to get off balance.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't like this booming meeting either. It was just like, just get there and just so you could say you went.
Well, just because in your mind you're telling yourself it's good for you. It doesn't matter what the reason for it is. Doesn't who cares? It's like it's a good thing to do, so you just do it. And isn't it great that you're able to, to be in that place where you're not worried about other people stealing your ideas, and it just doesn't matter, and who cares, and because that gives you so much freedom. Because a person that's frozen, paralyzed with the fear that other people are going to steal their ideas, they can't be living their lives because they're stuck in that paralysis of fear.
I just think maybe I would like to bring more emphasis on my experience of how important it is to really search and discover yourself to figure out what really makes you tick. And if throwing out the concept of like the meaning of life is a little extreme or can't really reach too many people, then I'd scale it back and say, like, really you need to figure out what's going to make you get out of bed. And with that combination of your journey in recovery, then it's going to be the ingredients you need to live a fulfilling, beautiful life. And of course, the common denominator, like sobriety is important as anything else. But it's also just like, but there's got to be a few more steps after that. It's like, okay, you do this circle and it's going to keep you free from your active addiction. And then it's like, okay, and then now you need to build a house. Like you got the foundation. You need to actually build a house to live in. And you need to like create it in a way that you want to wake up in it, and you want to do your work in there, and you want to like live a really exciting life, because that will, in the time of the worst possible time, is like, yes, everything fell apart, the fucking roof blew off in a tornado, but this is still far superior than going on a tear in Las Vegas, or like whatever you can fathom that would make you like put the best against the best.
Yeah.
It just doesn't work. And then again, I can get in like, okay, if I wake up tomorrow and I'm still feeling really like, oh, well, Jesus, maybe a drink is better than this shit. Well, then you gotta be able to step back, get back into you might need to change up your routine, reassess the situation, and dive back into some basic principles to get you through a hard month. Sure. Right? Like, it doesn't mean like it just disappears.
Well, I mean, we all go through ruts, right?
Right.
But like what you're talking about, it reminds me, of when I like that construction analogy. You build the concrete slab, you put the concrete slab down, and you know what? For a while, that's pretty good. I can live on this concrete slab. But then you start building a really nice house around that concrete slab, and you're really starting to enjoy all these different rooms you got, and you got a place to kick back and chill, and you got a place you can read, you can watch TV in this room, you can do different things and work in this room, and you've created all these rooms and a roof over your head, and there's heating in there, and it's a really comfortable place to be and all of a sudden, like you said, a tornado comes along and removes everything, and you're back to that concrete slab. It's gonna be hard to live to live on that concrete slab once you've experienced all those other good things, right? And why would you want to? And
And
so if you've got an opportunity to build a house, make something out of your life, and not live on that concrete slab, you know, it's good to. I think people don't realize how much there is available to them, right? Like what kind of house they can actually build on that concrete slab if they just get to work at it.
I got one guy that I won't mention names, but like a lot of the people that I've seen make it in sobriety are I'm describing them from what I see in my experience. They have booming businesses, they have booming obligations, they're talented as fuck, and they're all in, which you would agree on the all in element. But what kind of gets often overlooked is like the ability to really like engage in a certain element in your life. And like, for example, like it's not about the business, it's not about the money, but the fact, like I remember that one guy specifically had a really busy business and he would employ guys that were fucking struggling, that were just trying to get a foundation. And it's like, there you go. That's what I'm talking about. And like, so if you start building something that actually elevates others because you got sober, like that's what it's about. And that the guys that you're helping ain't going to stay sober, but you will. And like the guys that you're giving opportunities to.
But some of them might.
Oh, no. I know, but it's just like because in my experience, again, Dad, like the guys that I've seen that have stuck around and really like flourished and maintained lengths of sobriety are ones who really like utilize their potential.
Yeah. I know what you mean. There's a lot of those for sure. And that's,
because if I couldn't utilize
those people seem to be the most grateful.
Right.
Yeah.
All right, that's it for me.
All right, let's close this with the serenity we prayer. God, grant us the serenity to accept the things we cannot change, courage to change the things we can, and wisdom to know the difference.
You know